It's a wonderful day and it's another wonderful day of learning new knowledge. Hello viewers, it's your college boy and your podcast host, Abdul Hadi Masapi, and welcome to ASM Podcast Discussion. And on this video, we are going to delve deeper into the fascinating realm of language acquisition using the concept of constructivist theory, but with a twist. We're going to discuss it using the perspective of four amazing and different persons to ever exist in this history. Back then when I was little, my first word is dash. And it's really a puzzle to think how I learned that word. Isn't it fascinating to understand how individuals have acquired their first and second language? Well, if this question puzzled you and triggered your curious side, then worry no more, because on this video, we are going to elaborately discuss how individuals acquire their language, what steps everyone undergoes to achieve their language fluency, and as well as what processes it affecting language fluency of an individual. Joining us on today's episode is someone who I know can help us understand this concept very well. She's someone who is very dear to my heart. Let's welcome my love, Miss Siti Liza Omar. Hello, Miss Siti Liza Omar. How are you?
I'm fine.
So I've been hearing a lot of rumors about you that you discuss the topic of John Piaget very well. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right.
On today's episode, we are going to discuss the constructivist approach of John Piaget. But first, a little background about who is this influential man. John Piaget was a Swiss psychologist born in 1896 and died in 1980. He was known for his work in the developmental psychology. He was the first to systematically study how children acquire understanding. He was widely recognized as a major figure in 20th century developmental psychology. His research and theory on cognitive development have had a profound impact on education and psychology. On the constructivist idea of Piaget, there is these 5 things that belongs to his idea. The first one is schema. Do you know what is schema?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is.
So allow me to discuss to you what is schema, right?
Yes.
Piaget proposed that individuals construct their knowledge through the process of assimilation and accommodation. Do you know what's assimilation and accommodation?
No.
So let me do the honor by discussing you what is assimilation and what is accommodation. But for you to easily understand this, I'm going to tell you a story, okay? Listen.
Yes.
One day, the father and his son went to forest. You know what's the son's favorite animal?
Dogs.
You're right. The son's favorite animal is dog, and the son knows that dog can bark. Now, as they go through the forest, the son saw a dog running. Then he came up with this idea that dogs doesn't only bark. Dog also can run. That is assimilation. You're going to incorporate new information to your existing information. Now, as the story continues, the son and the father walk through the forest, and then the son also knows that his favorite animal has a lot of hair. Then the son saw a kitten having a lot of hair. Then he came up with this confusion in mind that why do kittens have a lot of hair if the dog has a lot of hair too? Then he come up with the realization that dog is not the only animal with a lot of hair, but kittens too. That's accommodation. You're going to add a new information. You're going to absorb new information to your existing information. Now, there is this one last thing that is part of Piaget's idea, but it's not totally highlighted as part of his idea. Do you know what is that?
No.
That is equilibration. I know you've experienced being corrected by your friends or your teacher about your mistakes in your class, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's equilibration. Now, as the story continues, the son asked his father, "Father, I thought dog is the only animal with a lot of hair. Why do kittens too?" Then the father replied, "No, son, the dog is not the only animal with a lot of hair, but kittens too. That's equilibration. So let's say the role of the father there is the teacher. Now the role of the teacher is correcting the wrong information, the wrong concept that the learner had in his mind. Did you get what the schema?
Yes.
And did you enjoy the story?
Yes, of course. I've read that there's a stages of cognitive development that discussed by John Piaget.
So what is that stages of development? Because I'm not familiar with it.
Piaget identified 4 stages of cognitive development. The first one is sensory motor.
Sensory motor. Go ahead.
Sensory motor stage, child can explore using its senses and he can imitate sounds.
Fascinating. So I guess my nephew belongs to this because anything that he has in his hand is he puts it in his mouth. Because I think mouth is senses too.
Yes.
And he used that senses for exploration, right?
Yes, that's right.
So go ahead.
The number 2 is pre-operational stages, which children can use private words or private speech and take the point of another.
Okay, so back then when I was little, I think I've undergone also this stage because when you're in a party or let's say in a kanduli, then my mother look at me and saying, "Go take care," with a fierce eyes. And then I come up with this idea that my mother is, I guess my mother is mad at me and he might be angry when we arrive at home. So I guess I belong to that stage, right?
Yes, that's right. And the number 3 is concrete operational stage, which children can recognize how events placed on time.
No, I guess my sister belongs to that stage because she knows when is her birthday, she knows
Yes.
when is the Eid al-Fitr, she knows when is the Eid al-Adha. Is it that right?
Yes, that's right. The number 4, the last, is the formal operational stage, which children can reason and present abstract ideas. According to Piaget, individuals progress through these stages as they actively engage with their environment and construct knowledge through interactions.
So I guess that answers my question that I've undergone to with that stages and you've undergone to with that
Yes,
stages,
that's
right?
right.
I've read an article which belongs to the keyword active learning and they are connecting it with Piaget. Do you want to know what is active learning? Because I've read it with a lot of comprehension.
Go ahead.
Active learning is the concept where Piaget emphasizes the importance of active learning and hands-on experiences in cognitive development of a learner. He believed that children learn best through direct interaction with their environment, manipulating objects and engaging in concrete experiences. So this means that if I am the learner, then I am doing the activity. I am doing an active task for me to learn the things that I want to learn. So that is active learning. But additionally, there is this another thing that is, they are linking it also with the idea of Piaget. That is discovery learning. So I know you've experienced this type of learning because I know as a student, you experienced a volcanic eruption when you were in high school, am I right?
Yes, that's right.
That is the exact example of discovery learning. Piaget advocated for discovery learning where learners actively explore and interact with their environment to construct knowledge. He believed that learners should be given opportunities to discover and make sense of concept on their own rather than passively presented with information. The activity when we are in high school, which is the volcanic eruption, is the most exact example of discovery learning. Because this is when you are putting a specific substance to make the volcano erupt. And that eruption, that activity enables you to learn by yourself, to learn by exploring, and to learn by discovery with your own self. So that is the exact example and the definition, and as well as explanation of discovery learning.
As an avid reader, I've read also an article just like you that explains Piaget's idea,
What is that idea?
which is social interaction. While Piaget's theory initially focused on individuals' cognitive development, later research has highlighted the role of social interaction in cognitive development. Social constructivism, influenced by Piaget's work, emphasized the importance of social interactions and collaboration in the construction of knowledge.
So this means that learning in this concept by Piaget is coming from who surrounds the learner and what environment the learner belongs to. Am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Piaget's constructivist theory emphasizes that children actively construct their understanding of the world through experiences. To conclude, central to this theory is schema, which is a mental framework that helps individuals interpret information. Piaget outlined also 4 stages of cognitive development, which you've discussed earlier, which each marking the distinct cognitive ability of a learner. He also believed on active learning and discovery learning on individual development. Piaget also recognized the role of social interaction, that's what you've discussed before, in shaping children's understanding. Overall, Piaget's idea is such an amazing idea that contributes a lot into this society and especially to the psychologist in cognitive development. That concludes the first episode of ASM Podcast Discussion. Thank you very much for tuning with us, and thank you very much, Miss Siti Liza Omar, for joining on our podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Hope you enjoyed guesting on our podcast channel, and we are looking forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Yes.
On our next episode, we're going to delve deeper into the idea of Lev Vygotsky about social constructivists. Once again, this is your college boy, your podcast host, Abdelhadi Masabi, and this is ASM Podcast Discussion. Do your environment plays a part in your language acquisition? What is the role of your friends and peers in the process of language acquisition? Welcome to the second episode of ASM Podcast Discussion. This is your college boy and your podcast host, Abdelhadi Masabi. And on this episode, we're going to discuss The Social Constructivist by Lev Vygotsky. Joining us on today's episodes are college buddies and best friends since childhood. Let's welcome Muad Sugadol and Alaysa Amludo. Welcome to our podcast channel. How are you guys?
I'm fine.
Good.
So, I've heard that you are college buddies, right?
Yes.
That's right.
That's good. Because back then when I was in junior high, I have these buddies too. But now we are separated because we chose to study on different schools and universities. Before we discuss Lev's idea, let's get to know first who is Lev Vygotsky. So are you interested to getting to know who is Lev Vygotsky?
Yes, of course.
So allow me to introduce to you who is Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist born in 1896 and died in 1934. He was known for developing the socio-cultural theory of learning and the zone of proximal development. His work emphasizes the influence of social interaction, culture, and language on cognitive development. Lev Vygotsky's social constructivist theory emphasizes the collaborative learning where individuals construct knowledge through social interaction. Central to this theory is the zone of proximal development, or ZPD, highlighting the difference between independent and guided learning. Regarding to memory, Vygotsky's theory involves construction, storage, and retrieval, emphasizing the active role or the active organization of information and retention over time. He also emphasizes the ability to access stored knowledge. The central to this social constructivist by Lev Vygotsky is that if I am the learner, then you guys surround me, and this environment, the learning is from you and to this environment. That is the main idea of Vygotsky. But I've heard that you know a lot of these 3 steps that is introduced by Lev Vygotsky, right, Mons?
Yes, that's right.
So can you share to us what are those 3 processes of acquiring new knowledge, Mads? Because I've heard a lot of rumors that you know a lot of these things. So go ahead, share it to us.
Of course. There are process of acquiring the new knowledge involve 3 steps according to Lev Vygotsky. The number 1 is construction. The number 2 is storage. The number 3 is retrieval.
So can you share to us what is construction? Because it seems like it's a fascinating word, because construction is, I often hear that word in a construction site.
Of course. Construction phase refers to the process, the new concept, by drawing of existing knowledge and experiences. Learners actively engage the knowledge and information and make connection between new and existing knowledge. The process involved integrating and organizing information in a way that makes sense to the learners.
That's an interesting concept, because it's just like you are putting a hollow blocks together to make a strong foundation of a building. So I guess that implies also to this idea of Vygotsky, wherein you are constructing the idea, you are constructing the information to build the knowledge. So what's next?
The next one is storage. When new information is constructed, it needs to be stored in memory. The storage space involves the mental process of encoding and retaining the new knowledge. Learners ask various strategies to restore information such as repetition, visualization, and making connection to existing knowledge. The information is restored the long-term memory where it can be accessed later.
So I just wanted to emphasize to our viewers as well as to you guys the idea of repetition and visualization.
Yes.
The repetition is when you are actively repeating what you've learned or what you've studied in school or in any concept where you learn. And the visualization is a process or is a method of remembering the information and in a way that you're imagining that learning things, you're imagining that learning aims that you wanted to, just like you can see it on the whiteboard or in a blackboard. Isn't that right, Moaz?
That's right.
So, Alyssa, I've heard that you can discuss to us, and I know you are prepared to discuss to us, what is the retrieval process by Vygotsky?
In simple terms, retrieval is when you remember and use information that we have stored in your memory. For example, when you are taking a test and you remember answer to a question, you are retrieving that information from your memory. This process can you help make a decision and solve problem based on what you already know. Sometimes cues or reminders can help you remember information you need. So retrieval is like finding, using, and information that we have stored in your brain when you need it.
So those three that you've discussed to me and to our viewers is such a fascinating thing, and we understand that those are the three steps that we need to know, we need to understand in order to acquire new knowledge and as well as language, of course. That's another episode of ASM Podcast Discussion. Thank you very much for tuning with us, and thank you very much for guesting on our podcast
And
channel.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our viewers, I guess, learned a lot from you guys. And on our next episode, we are going to delve deeper into the idea of Jerome Bruner about constructivist theory. How does language development contribute to the construction of knowledge? What is scaffolding? And how does scaffolding support language development and help learners build on their existing knowledge? Hello viewers and welcome back to ASM Podcast Discussion. This is your college boy and your podcast host, Abdul Hadi Masabi. And on this episode, we are going to discuss the idea of Jerome Bruner on constructivist theory. Joining us on today's episode is a man who knows very well and a friend of mine. Let's welcome Alipan Maskur. Welcome to our podcast channel.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine.
I've heard that you successfully discussed the idea of constructivist theory by Jerome Bruner in your class. Is that right?
Yes, of course, definitely.
Before we delve deeper to his idea, let's have the background of Jerome Bruner. Jerome Bruner was born in 1915 and died on 2016. He was an influential American psychologist and educator known for his theory on cognitive development, constructivism, and education. His work emphasizes the active role of learners in constructing knowledge and understanding, shaping educational practices and curriculum design. Bruner's contribution have had a lasting impact on American educational system and in the field of cognitive psychology, highlighting the importance of hands-on learning experiences and discovery-based approaches. So, I know Masker Alipan knows also who is Jerome Bruner, and I know he had a lot of things to add on our introduction to Jerome Bruner. Is that right?
Yes, of course.
Go ahead.
So Jerome Bruner, as what you said earlier, was an American psychologist who made important contribution to the study of how people think and learn. He focused on how our minds work and how we understand the world around us. So, for example, he believed that people learn best when they actively participate in the learning process rather than just passively receiving information. The idea of Brunner emphasized the importance of hands-on learning and problem solving. He believed that students should be encouraged to explore and discover new ideas for themselves rather than just memorizing the fact. And overall, Jerome Brunner's work has had a lasting impact on both psychology and education, shaping how we think about learning and teaching.
So he systematically studied how we understand things and how we develop our learnings, right?
Absolutely.
So I know there is key points on his idea, and I know you know a lot about what are those key points, right?
Yes, definitely.
Can you share to our viewers and also to me, because I don't know what are those key points, and can you elaborately discuss to us, Mascor?
Here are some key points about Brunner's constructivist idea. So the first is discovery learning, second scaffolding, third spiral curriculum, and the fourth is representation.
And allow me to tell the number 5. I know what is that, and that is narrative and storytelling.
Yes.
That's good. So can you elaborately discuss to us and to our viewer what is discovery learning by Jerome Brunner?
Of course, so let me talk about the discovery learning. It is a teaching approach where learners are encouraged to actively explore and discover knowledge through hands-on experiences. For example, instead of just reading about how plants grow, a student might be given seeds, soil, and water to plant their own garden and observe the growth process. By actively participating in the learning experience, students are able to better understand and retain the information. Overall, discovery learning is a more engaging and effective way to acquire knowledge and skills as it encourages them to think critically and problem solving on their own.
So this is where learners are given an opportunity to do their learning process by themselves, right?
Yes, definitely.
And the role of the teacher is just observing and giving an instruction, right?
Yes, that's right.
So what's next? What's next? I guess that's scaffolding, and it's an interesting word because I've heard scaffolding on a construction or which is a construction worker use it to reach the highest point of their building. Is it that?
Of course.
So what is scaffolding by Jerome Brunner?
So allow me to discuss the scaffolding. So scaffolding is like building a structure to help students learn new things.
Makes sense.
Just like how construction workers use scaffolding to support and building while it's being built. Then teachers provide support and guidance to students as they learn new tasks or ideas. This support is gradually reduced as students become more confident and capable of learning on their own. It's like training wheels on a bike. They help you learn how to ride, but eventually you can ride without them. This approach helps students learn at their own pace and gradually become more independent learners.
So the scaffolding, I guess, as how you discuss it, it's just like giving a guidance to a learner to allow them to do things by their own.
Yes.
That's good. So I've heard also you mentioned earlier about spiral curriculum, and I am familiar with spiral curriculum, but I don't think if the definition that I know is same with how you define the spiral curriculum by Jerome Brunner. So can you share to us and to our viewers what is this spiral curriculum by Jerome Brunner?
Yes, of course. Spiral curriculum is like climbing a spiral staircase where you keep coming back to the same topics, but each time you go up, you understand them better and in more detail. This method helps learners to strengthen their understanding but revisiting topics multiple times with increasing difficulty. By this ideas, learners can connect different ideas and build up on what they already know, leading to deeper understanding of the subject. It's like practicing a sport. The more you practice, the better you get it. This approach helps learners to truly grasp and retain the information they are learning.
So I guess on this spiral curriculum, since you've mentioned about sports, and the most applicable quotation here, guys, that which I know is very applicable because it's same as what I know with the spiral curriculum, is the word practice makes perfect.
Yes.
Because as we recap again and again the topic that we are discussing, the more we grasp, the more we understand the concept, the more we understand that concept and clearer and better than before. Okay, so what is next? I guess it's representation. And can you share to us what is representation by Jerome Bruner?
Yes, of course. Let's talk about the representation. It is about using different ways to show information to help people learn better. For example, instead of just reading a textbook, you might also see pictures, charts, or use objects to understand a concept. This helps because it gives your brain different ways to understand and remember the information. So Brunner taught that using multiple ways to represent information can make it easier for people to understand complex ideas. So by using visual aids, diagrams, or hands-on materials, learners can make connection and understand subject concept more easily.
So I guess as what we've discussed before on our semestral, the type of learning which is applicable to these kinds of, this concept of Brunner is the visual learners.
Yes.
Because he is seeing a representation, a specific representation that could help them in their learning process. Lastly, I just wanted to add this, based on my research, the narrative and storytelling. So I know that when you were still a little, your grandmother also tells you a story, right?
Yes.
And that story is just like a crystal clear that is being embedded to your mind after storytelling. Because storytelling is something that is can grab an attention and can help learners easily remember that concept.
Definitely.
And storytelling, narrative and storytelling is, Brunner believed that this is also applicable to the learning style of every learners, because every one of us likes to read, likes to hear a story or even read a story. So it is very practical to use this kind of strategy to be able to easily give the learners the learning aims that they want. Jerome Bruner's constructivist theory posits that learning is an active process where individuals construct knowledge through experiences and interaction, emphasizing discovery and social collaboration. Bruner highlights the role of inquiry, problem-solving, and scaffolding in knowledge construction. His theory underscores the dynamic nature of learning, stressing engagement, exploration, and social context in acquisition of understanding. That concludes our third episode of ASM Podcast Discussion. Thank you very much for joining us on our podcast channel. Hope to see you again on our next episode. Once again, I am your college boy, your podcast host, Abdulhadi Masabi. And on our next episode, we're going to delve deeper into the idea of John Dewey on constructivist theory. Do we actually learn by doing, or do we learn by just listening and watching? Hello viewers, this is your college boy and your podcast host Abdulhadi Masabi. And on this episode, we are going to discuss the idea of John Dewey and constructivist theory. Joining us once again on this last and final episode, let's welcome once again Ms. Siti Liza Omar. Welcome once again to our podcast channel.
Thank you very much.
But before diving in, let's have a background about who is this influential man named John Dewey. John Dewey was born on 1859 and died on 1952. He was an influential American philosopher, psychologist, and educational reformer. He is best known for his work in the field of pragmaticism and progressive education. Dewey believed in the importance of experimental learning, where education should be based on the real-life experiences of students. He advocated for hands-on, interactive approach to learning that focused on problem-solving and critical thinking. Dewey's idea had had a profound impact on education, emphasizing the need of student-centered. So, to better understand, to elaborately understand who is John Dewey and what is his idea, we invited Ms. Siti Liza Omar to help us discuss who is John Dewey and what is his idea on constructivist.
According to Dewey, learning is not a passive process of receiving information, but an active process of constructing meaning. He argued that learners should be actively engaged with their own learning, connecting new information to their prior knowledge and experiences. He believed that education should be centered around learners' interests, needs, and abilities.
So it is just like highlighting what the learner's preferred way of learning, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's affective kind of learners in what we discussed before, right?
Yes, that's right.
Go ahead.
And his theory is highly known for his quotation. Do you want to know what is his quotation?
I am a person who is very enthusiastic even in terms of quotation. And it's my honor to understand and know what is this John Dewey's quotation. What is that?
His quotation is highly known, learning by doing.
Oh, an interesting quotation, you know.
Yes, Dewey's approach to education can be considered constructivist because it emphasizes the role of learner in constructing their knowledge and understanding. He believed that learning should be contextualized and relevant to the learner's life, allowing them to actively participate in their own education.
That's an interesting fact about John Dewey, since John Dewey is emphasizing mainly what is the preferred way of learning by the learners.
Yes.
In summary, while Dewey did not explicitly use the term constructivist, his educational philosophy aligns with the principle of constructivism. He emphasized the active learning, problem solving, and inquiry-based approach, which are central to constructivist theory of learning. To conclude, the idea of these four men are equally important in understanding how individuals acquire their knowledge and how individuals develop their language skills. That concludes our discussion regarding the constructivist theory. Thank you very much for tuning with us. Once again, I am your college boy and your podcast host, Abdulhadi Masabdi. And thank you very much for guesting with us, Miss Siti Laisao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. This is ASM Podcast Discussion.